When a girl falls in love with a black boy, her parents disapprove of him. She decides to leave their house and move away with the black man. The air hums with heat as Kai presses Elise against the velvet-lined wall of the penthouse, her breath catching in sharp, jagged gasps. Her fingers claw into his shoulders, nails digging through the thin fabric of his shirt, tearing at the seams as if she's trying to peel him open, to claim the wealth and heritage pulsing beneath his skin. His lips crash against hers, tasting the salt of her desperation, the sweet tang of champagne lingering on her tongue from the glass she'd flung aside moments ago, its golden shards now glittering on the marble floor like fallen stars. The room spins, gold chandeliers glinting, their prisms casting fractured light across the walls, shadows flickering like specters over the cold stone beneath their feet. Outside, the city sprawls in a haze of neon and smoke, its pulse throbbing through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a heartbeat Kai feels in his chest as he grips her tighter. Her white dress clings to her thighs, riding up as she hooks a leg around his waist, pulling him closer, her whispers hot against his ear. "They'll never take you from me." But even now, the lie coils between them, venomous and alive, her hazel eyes glinting with something darker than love, greed, maybe, or the thrill of defiance, a reckless hunger that mirrors the chaos she's always courted. Downstairs, her parents' voices rise, sharp and slurred with rage, their racial venom slicing through the walls like a serrated blade. "That black bastard won't ruin us." Tom Harper's bellow is a thunderclap, raw and unfiltered, his words soaked in the cheap whiskey he's been drowning in since dusk. Linda's shrill agreement follows, a venomous echo. "He's filth, Elise. Filth." Kay's hands tighten on her hips, a growl rumbling in his chest. Not just for her, but for the fight he knows is coming, the one he's been bracing for since the day he first crossed their path. Across town, Margot watches from her office window, her fingers trembling around a cigarette, its ember glowing like a tiny sun against the dark. Her pale skin flushes with a longing she'll never confess. Not to him, not to anyone, her lips curling into a sneer as she mutters his name. Kay's a syllable slipping out like a curse and a prayer tangled together. The night fractures, desire and hate twisting into a knot no one can untie. A collision of forces too volatile to contain. The penthouse trembles with the weight of their collision. Kay and Elise, locked in a dance of flesh and fury. Her hair spills like pale fire across his dark hands, strands catching in the calluses he's earned from years of swinging hammers and hauling steel. He breathes her in, jasmine and betrayal, a scent that clings to her like a second skin, intoxicating and treacherous. She arches into him, her body a bowstring pulled taut, her spine curving against the wall, as if she could meld into him, become part of the legacy she craves. For a moment, he believes her whispers, believes she's his, that this heat between them is more than a fleeting spark. But the crash of a bottle against the door shatters the illusion. Her father's voice roars, thick with liquor and loathing, "Get your filthy hands off my daughter." And Elise's grip falters, her eyes darting toward the sound, calculating, her breath hitching not with passion but with strategy. Kai feels it, the shift, the way her passion cools into something sharper, something transactional, a blade she's honing against him even now. He pulls back, chest heaving, his shirt damp with sweat, and she stumbles, her lips parted, wet and swollen, but her gaze is already elsewhere, counting the cost of this rebellion. How much she can take before the house of cards collapses. The room holds its breath, the air thick with musk and menace, the chandelier's light dimming, as if it too senses the unraveling. Kai knows, this isn't love, it's a heist, and he's the prize she's stealing from the wreckage of her family's hate. He steps away, his boots scuffing the marble, and wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, tasting her still champagne and deceit. Elise straightens, smoothing her dress, her fingers trembling slightly as she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture too practiced to be innocent. "Kai," she starts, her voice softer now, pleading, but he cuts her off with a look, those storm-filled eyes that see through her every time. Downstairs, the shouting grows louder, Tom's footsteps pounding the stairs, each thud a countdown to chaos. Kai's jaw tightens, his fists clenching at his sides, ready for the storm about to break through that door. But the story doesn't begin here, in this gilded cage of lust and lies. It starts months earlier, under a sky bruised with dusk. In a town where the lines between black and white are drawn in blood and brick. A place called Harrow's Bend, where history festers like an open wound. Kai Jackson, 22, stands at the edge of a cracked asphalt lot, his shadow stretching long and lean across the ground, merging with the shadows of rusted oil drums and abandoned tires. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with skin the color of burnt mahogany and eyes that hold storms. Eyes that caught Elise Harper the first time she saw him, though she'd never admit it was his family's name, not his face that hooked her, like a fish on a line. The Jacksons own half the county's real estate, a fortune built from nothing by Kai's grandfather, Ezekiel Jackson, a man who clawed his way out of sharecropping shadows into a legacy of gold. Ezekiel had been a wiry figure, all sinew and will, his hands scarred from decades of toil, his voice a gravelly hymn when he told Kai stories of buying his first plot of land with coins scraped from cotton fields. Kai wears that legacy like armor, but it's heavy and it glints in the sun, drawing stares, some of envy, some of hate, all of them sizing him up as either a threat or a target. Elise, 19, watches him from across the lot, perched on the hood of her father's rusted Chevy, its paint peeling like old skin. Her blonde hair catches the last light, glowing like a halo she doesn't deserve, her denim shorts frayed at the edges, revealing tanned legs scratched from climbing fences and running wild. Her lips curve into a smile that's half invitation, half trap, a predator's grin masked as a flirt. She's heard the stories, Kai's money, his lineage, the way he walks like he owns the earth beneath his boots, a confidence that rankles her father's brittle pride. Her parents, Tom and Linda Harper, spit his name like it's poison, their voices dripping with slurs when he passes their sagging porch on Maple Street, a house leaning under the weight of unpaid bills and unwashed resentment. That boy's kind don't belong here. Tom snarls, his beer can crumpling in his fist, his knuckles scarred from bar fights he never wins. Linda nods, her eyes narrow slits. He's trouble, always will be, her voice a hiss as she clutches her rosary, the beads worn smooth from years of hypocritical prayers. But Elise sees something else. Escape, power, a ticket out of their crumbling world, a chance to trade her parents' dirt-stained legacy for something that shines. She slides off the hood, hips swaying as she crosses the lot, her sneakers kicking up dust that swirls in the dying light. Kai turns, sensing her before he sees her. His instincts honed from years of navigating a town that both reveres and reviles him. Their first words are simple, narrated in the third person as if carved into the air. "Hey," she says, her voice a low hum. "You're Kai, right?" The parking lot is a sprawl of cracked asphalt, the sodium lights buzzing overhead like dying wasps, casting a sickly yellow glow over the scene. He nods, his gaze tracing the curve of her jaw, the way her breath hitches when he steps closer. Gravel crunching under his boots. "And you're Elise," he replies, his tone velvet over steel. Knowing already she's trouble he can't resist. She's 19, not 22 as he'd later guess. All wild hair and restless eyes, her denim jacket frayed at the cuffs, a hand-me-down from her brother who left town years ago and never looked back. The air between them crackles, charged with unspoken promises, and from that moment they're bound. Two moths circling a flame, neither caring who gets burned first. Kaya's truck idles nearby, its engine a low growl, the cab still warm from his drive across town, the leather seats creaking under his weight. He'd seen her before at the diner, flipping through a magazine, her legs crossed on a stool, her laughter cutting through the grease-scented air like a blade through butter. She'd caught his eye then, her hazel gaze flicking up to meet his over the edge of the page. But tonight's different. Tonight, she sought him out, lingering by the gas pumps, until he pulled in, her silhouette the deliberate lure against the flickering neon of the station sign. "Heard you live up in that fancy penthouse now," she says, her lips curling into a half-smile teasing but testing. He shrugs, leaning against the truck, his flannel shirt taut over his broad shoulders, the fabric worn soft from months on construction sites. "It's just a place," he says, but his voice carries the weight of what it means. A perch above Harrow's Bend, a defiance of the town's low expectations for him. She steps closer, her fingers brushing his arm, and he feels the heat of her intent. A spark he can't ignore, a current that jolts through him like the first rumble of thunder. Across town, Margot Voss sits behind her desk at Voss Construction, her manicured nails tapping against a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid sloshing with each restless twitch. The office is a fortress of steel and glass, perched atop the skeleton of a half-built high-rise, the city sprawling below like a conquered beast, its lights winking like eyes in the dark. She's 38, all sharp angles and pale skin, her auburn hair pinned tight like her secrets, a bun that's more armor than style. The bourbon burns her throat, a ritual to dull the edges of her day. But it never touches the ache she carries, a hollow spot beneath her ribs that flares whenever Kai's name crosses her mind. He works for her, a foreman on her sites, his hands rough from labor, his voice steady when he calls out orders over the whine of saws and the clatter of steel. She hired him 2 years ago, drawn to his quiet strength, the way he commands respect without trying, a presence that fills a room without shouting. He'd walked into her office that first day, his resume thin but his shoulders squared, and she'd felt it, a pull she couldn't name, a tremor that started in her gut and settled in her chest. The memory flickers now as she stares out the window, the cigarette smoke curling around her like a ghost. She'd been reviewing blueprints that day, her desk a chaos of rulers and pencils, when he'd knocked a single firm rap that made her look up. "Kai Jackson," he'd said, extending a hand. His grip warm and sure when she took it. She'd nodded, gesturing to the chair across from her. But he'd stood instead, his flannel shirt rolled up to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle. "I don't sit much," he'd said. A faint smile tugging at his lips, and she'd laughed despite herself, a sound that surprised her with its lightness. 2 years later, he's her best foreman, the one she trusts to keep her projects on track. But he's more than that, too much more, though she'd never say it aloud. The bourbon glass clinks as she sets it down, her fingers brushing the edge of a photo frame she keeps turned face down, a secret even from herself. Back in the penthouse, the door splinters under Tom Harper's fist, the wood groaning as he staggers in, his face a mottled red, his eyes bloodshot and wild. "Worry." He spits, pointing a trembling finger at Kai, the whiskey bottle still clutched in his other hand, its neck dripping onto the floor. Linda hovers behind him, her nightgown stained with coffee, her hair a tangle of gray and blonde, her voice a screech. "Elise, get away from him." Elise freezes, caught between Kai and her parents, her dress still hiked up, her breath shallow. Kai steps forward, placing himself between her and Tom, his body a shield, though he knows she doesn't deserve it. "Go home, Mr. Harper," he says, his voice low, steady, a warning wrapped in calm. Tom laughs, a wet, ugly sound, and hurls the bottle. It misses Kai by inches, shattering against the wall, the stench of liquor flooding the air. Elise's hand brushes Kai's arm, a fleeting touch, but it's enough to ignite Tom's rage further. "You little slut," he roars, lunging at her, but Kai catches his wrist, twisting it until Tom yelps, the sound sharp and pitiful. Linda claws at Kai's back, her nails raking his shirt, but he doesn't flinch, his grip iron as he shoves Tom toward the door. "Get out," he says. And this time it's not a request. Tom stumbles, cursing, and Linda follows, dragging him down the hall, their voices fading into a slurry of threats and sobs. Elise watches them go, her face pale, her hands shaking, and when she turns to Kai, her eyes are wet, not with tears but with something colder, something that chills him more than her father's hate. Months before, in Harrow's Bend, their story had taken root in quieter moments, in stolen glances and half-spoken truths. Kai had grown up on the edge of town, in a clapboard house his grandfather had built, its porch sagging but sturdy, its walls lined with photos of Ezekiel shaking hands with mayors, signing deeds, defying the odds. Kai's mother, Ruby, still lived there, her hands stained from years of gardening, her voice soft when she told him, "You're more than they'll ever see, baby." His father had died when Kai was 10, a heart attack on a construction site, leaving Ruby to raise him alone, to teach him how to carry the Jackson name without buckling under its weight. At 16, Kai had started working summers for Ezekiel, learning the business, land deals, tenant disputes, the slow grind of turning dirt into dollars. By 22 he'd taken over, moving into the penthouse to oversee the urban projects, a symbol of how far they'd come. Elise's world was smaller, meaner, a trailer park on the west side where the air smelled of diesel and despair. Tom had been a mechanic once, good with engines until the bottle took his hand's steadiness. Linda had waitressed at the diner, her tips dwindling as her temper sharpened. Elise had grown up dodging their fights, hiding in the woods with a stolen library book, dreaming of a life beyond the chain-link fence. Kay was that dream made flesh, money, power, a name that opened doors, and when she'd seen him at the diner, she'd known he was her way out. That first night by the gas pumps, she'd pressed herself closer, her fingers lingering on his arm, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Take me for a ride sometime." He'd grinned, a rare crack in his guarded shell, and said, "Maybe I will." Their rides became a ritual, his truck cutting through back roads, the radio humming low, her head resting on his shoulder as the stars bled into the sky. She'd talk about leaving Harrow's Bend, about cities she'd seen in magazines, her words fast and bright. He'd listen, his silence a canvas for her plans, though he wondered how much of it was real. Her kisses came later, fierce and sudden, her hands tugging at his shirt like she could pull his future into her grasp. He let her, caught in the rush of her, but he saw the cracks, the way she'd ask about his properties, his bank accounts, her questions veiled as curiosity. Still, he drove her to the penthouse one night, the city lights sprawling below, and she'd gasped, her fingers tracing the glass, her voice awed. This could be ours. He'd kissed her then, hard, wanting to believe it, but the doubt lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. Margot's shadow stretched longer, darker, her office a silent witness to her unraveling. She'd grown up in Harrow's Bend too, the only child of a lumber baron, her life a parade of boarding schools and debutante balls, until she'd clawed her way into construction, proving she was more than her father's name. Kai had been a gamble, a hire her board had questioned, his youth and race a strike against him in their eyes. But she'd fought for him, sensing a fire that matched her own. Now she watched him from afar, her longing a quiet ache, her jealousy flaring when she heard whispers of Elise. The cigarette burns low, and she stubs it out, her lips pressing into a thin line as she murmurs, "You're wasting yourself, Kai." But she stays still, the bourbon her only company, the night stretching on as the town below churns with its own restless pulse. In the penthouse, the silence after Tom and Linda's exit is heavy, broken only by Elise's shallow breaths. Kai turns to her, his voice rough. "What do you want, Elise?" "Really?" She hesitates, her eyes darting to the shattered bottle, then back to him, and for once she doesn't have an answer. The city hums outside, indifferent, and Kai wonders if this is the end, or just another beginning. He'll regret. But she hates him, for it too. Hates the way her pulse races when he's near, hates the color of his skin that marks him as everything her father taught her to despise. Her father's voice still echoes in her skull, a gravelly sermon from her childhood. "They're beneath us, Margot. Always will be." She'd nodded then, a girl in pigtails, swallowing his venom whole. Now it festers, a poison she can't purge. "You're good for a black boy," she tells Kai one day, her lips curling as she leans too close, her breath sour with whiskey. The words slip out during a site inspection, the sun beating down on the crew, dust swirling around their boots. He stiffens, his jaw tight, but says nothing, swallowing the insult like bile. His silence cuts deeper than any retort, and she turns away, her heels sinking into the dirt, her hands trembling. She loves him, though, in a twisted, silent way. She watches him from her office, her fingers brushing the window pane as he hauls beams under the sun, sweat gleaming on his arms. His zine is a deep brown, kissed by hours of labor, and she imagines it under her hands, rough, warm, forbidden. She dreams of him at night, her sheets tangled, her body aching with a need she'd rather die than name. In those dreams he's hers, not the foreman but the man, his voice whispering her name, instead of barking orders. But in daylight, she lashes out, her words cutting deep. "Don't get cocky, Kai, you're still beneath me." It's a Tuesday, the crew on lunch break, and she's cornered him in the trailer, her perfume cloying in the small space. He meets her gaze, unflinching, his dark eyes steady, and she falters, her heart a traitor pounding against her ribs. She's his boss, his tormentor, his shadow, and he knows it, even if he doesn't know the depth of her obsession. Back in the lot, Elise's touch lingers, her fingers tracing the veins on Kai's forearm. "You're different," she murmurs, her breath warm against his neck. "Not like the boys around here." He chuckles, low and rough, pulling her closer. "Good different or bad different?" She grins, her teeth catching her lip. The kind I like. They meet again the next night, and the next, their bodies finding each other in stolen corners, behind the gas station, its neon sign flickering. In the cab of his truck, the seats creaking under their weight. Under the oak trees lining the river, their branches swaying in the humid breeze, she kisses him like she's drowning. Her hands greedy, tracing the lines of his chest, his wealth a phantom she can almost grasp. He's not rich, not really, just a man who clawed his way up, his penthouse a symbol of grit, not gold. But to her it's a castle, and he's the king she wants to crown. He loves her, truly, his heart a furnace, stoked by her laughter, her sighs. The way she whispers his name, like a secret. She's a spark in his gray world, a girl who sees he, not the foreman, not the black man in a white town, but him. They lie together on a blanket one night, the stars a scatter of pinpricks above, and she tells him stories, her childhood catching fireflies, her dreams of leaving this nowhere place. He listens, his arm around her, believing she's his redemption. But her love is a mirror, reflecting his gold back at him, not his soul. She talks of his penthouse like it's hers already, her fingers tracing imaginary curtains, her voice dreaming of marble and silk. He doesn't see it yet, the hunger behind her eyes. Her parents catch them one evening, Tom's flashlight slicing through the dark as Elise straddles Kai on a blanket by the creek. The water gurgles nearby, a soft counterpoint to the storm about to break. "You little nigger," Tom bellows, his voice a whip crack, his fist raised. He's a bull of a man, his flannel stained with motor oil, his face red from years of beer and rage. Linda screams, "Get away from her, you animal!" Her voice shrill, her blonde hair wild in the wind. Kai stands, shielding Elise, his body a wall, his fists clenched but still. "Daddy, stop," she says, scrambling to her feet, but her voice is weak, and Tom shoves Kai, spitting slurs, his breath reeking of hate. "You think you can touch my girl?" he snarls, his meaty hand slamming into Kai's chest. Elise pulls back, not forward, her eyes darting between them, and Kai feels the first crack in his chest, not from the blows but from her silence. He doesn't fight back, not with his hands. He's learned that lesson, fists get you nowhere in a town like this. Instead, he steps away, his boots sinking into the mud, his voice low. "I'm not here to hurt her." Tom swings again, missing, and Linda grabs Elise, dragging her toward the truck. "You're done with him," she hisses, and Elise doesn't resist, her head bowed. Kai watches them go, the flashlight beam fading, the night swallowing their curses. He stands there, alone, the creek whispering apologies he can't hear. Margot's abuse grows sharper too. She calls him into her office one afternoon, the blinds half drawn, the light slanting across her desk in golden bars. Her blouse is unbuttoned just enough to show the lace beneath. The deliberate tease she'll never admit. "You think you're special, don't you?" she sneers, her eyes raking over him, hungry and cruel. He's in his work gear, dusty jeans, a faded tee, his boots leaving faint prints on her polished floor. "You're nothing but muscle I pay for." Her voice is a blade, but her hand betrays her, brushing his chest as she steps closer, the bourbon on her breath mingling with her perfume. He stands tall, his silence a shield, and she trembles, pulling back as if burned. "Get out," she snaps, but her voice breaks, and he leaves, the air thick with her unspoken longing. She paces after he's gone, her heels clicking like gunfire. She hates him more now, hates his calm, his strength, the way he sees through her. She pours another drink, her hand shaking, and stares at the photo on her desk. Her father stern and gray, his arm around her as a child. "You'd be ashamed of me," she mutters, downing the glass. She imagines Kai's hands on her, his mouth on hers, and the fantasy chokes her. She slams the glass down, shattering it, the shards glittering like her fractured pride. Elise betrays her parents fully the night she climbs into Kai's penthouse. The scene that opens this tale. It's a sleek space, high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights a constellation below. She'd texted him earlier, her words desperate. "I'm done with them. I need you." He lets her in, his heart thudding, and she kisses him hard, her body pressed against his. "They don't own me," she says, her voice fierce, but her eyes flicker with something else, calculation. Not courage. She abandons their hate, their rules, but not for him, for what he represents. She runs her hands over the leather couch, the marble counter, her laughter echoing. This is ours now, she says, and he wants to believe her, but the doubt festers, a splinter under his skin. They make love that night, her nails digging into his back, his name a chant on her lips. But afterward, as she sleeps, he stares at the ceiling, the city's hum a distant lullaby. He remembers her hesitation by the creek, the way she didn't fight for him. He wonders if she's here for his heart or his haven, and the question gnaws at him, relentless. Her parents storm the building days later, their slurs echoing in the lobby. Tom pounds on the door, his voice a battering ram. "Open up, you bastard! Give me my daughter!" Linda sobs, her cries piercing. "She's all we have." Kai stands by the window, Elise beside him, her hand in his. "Tell them to go," he says, his voice steady. She hesitates, her grip loosening, and he sees it again, her wavering, her fear. She opens the door, her voice small. "Daddy, I'm staying." But when Tom lunges, she flinches, stepping back, and Kai feels the crack widen. She'll take his money, his name, but never his fight. Margot, watching from afar, makes her move too late. She's heard the whispers. Kai and Elise, the penthouse. The scandal. She calls him to her office one last time, her desk bare except for his termination papers. "You're not worth it," she says, her voice shaking, but her eyes scream the opposite. She's lost him to Elise, to his own fire, and she collapses after he leaves, her love a ghost she can't bury. She sits there, the bourbon gone, her hands empty, the window showing a city that doesn't care. Kai walks away from both, the penthouse lights fading behind him. He takes the stairs, his boots heavy, the echo his only company. He's free, but scarred. His heart a battlefield of ash and gold. The town whispers his name, a legend born of betrayal. Kai, the man who loved too hard, who trusted too much. He steps into the night, the air cool against his skin, and vows, next time, he'll choose who's worthy of his flame. The river glints in the distance, a silver thread through the dark, and he heads toward it, his shadow stretching long and unbroken.